confused or whatever, you still need to admit the patient, which I think that's going to be the problem, isn't it? You still need to admit the patient somewhere where someone can monitor. Go back to Jesus. Go back to the next one. You still need to monitor. You know why you need to monitor? You remember that those scans I showed that no one showed anything. They don't show this, and then you still need to monitor. So normally those kind of patients, drowsy, confused, they should probably still be going to a HDU place. One of the things I like doing is I'll actually speak to the family of the patient and say, hey, I would prefer your patient to be in ICU as a HDU patient, to be monitored very, very closely. Oh, we don't have money, that's fine. And we'll take you to it, but I'll document that I prefer this patient to be in a HDU, but they don't have money. Okay. If they have money and there's space, we go to ICU as a HDU patient. If there's no space in ICU, you pray to your God and put the patient somewhere. Abi? No, these are the realities.
That's the magic one.
These are the realities, isn't it? Okay. Let's keep going. Okay, so what next? So we've talked about giving that aspirin, we've talked about where you're going to move the patient to, we've talked about stabilizing all that, your blood pressure, all your normal medical stuff. Who are you going to call? Or who do you want to call? Okay, so in reality, can you actually speak to the neurologist by 2 a.m. and 3 a.m. night?
Is it even fair?
To speak to them.
You remember that we call him every 2 on the mass unit now?
If you send him his scan and he's sleeping, sorry, your scan is not working at 7 a.m. in the morning when he wakes up.
Continue monitoring.
Okay.
Especially the BP, because we gave our strength. There's a level the BP will get.
Please don't say that again. Don't say especially the BP. That means you're not following what I'm saying at all. Something is happening in the brain. If you say especially the GCS, I will prefer that. All the vitals are extremely important as well. But please, from an SBAR point of view, of situation, background and stuff like that, you know the patient has had a stroke. You're worried about everything, the whole patient, the systems and everything, but you're really worried about the brain. So even when you're documenting, the monitoring of stuff, but the GCS must come first. Extremely important. You keep monitoring this patient's level of consciousness, and you monitor it like a hawk. So you can say, okay, 1 a.m. in the morning, oh, it's an ischemic stroke. Okay, the patient is GCS 14 or GCS 13. Okay, this doctor here, if I call him the guy who speaks on my eye, what am I going to do? Okay, at least one of the things I can do, I can admit the patient somewhere and hope that whoever I'm leaving the patient with can actually really do GCS and monitor the patient appropriately. And actually track those trends. Because when that patient starts changing in 2 or 3 hours and stuff, you want to know, and at that particular point, you probably need to make sure you call for something. Whether he likes it or not. Whether he likes it or not. Hello, sir. I'm really sorry to wake you early this morning. I really do apologize. I have a 46-year-old woman that I'm extremely worried about. Communication skills. This man has had a stroke, came in GCS 15, and is now GCS 8 localizing. He is in big trouble, sir. I think this is what do you advise, sir? Again, I apologize for waking you up in the night. Okay, let's shift to the other one. Okay, so we talked about ischemic. Yeah. What if it's a bleed, hemorrhagic? What are you going to do? When you do that scan, right, image is we're trying to move to what next. When you do that scan, when you look at the scan, are you going to be able to pick it as a bleed? After this talk today, are you going to be able to pick it as a bleed? Yes. You're going to be able to pick it, isn't it? That is a bleed. Okay, that white thing in the brain and stuff. Okay. So what next? What are you going to do? All this stuff we've been talking about, or making sure the blood pressure is fine, you're going to do all that stuff, isn't it? Okay, what else are you going to do? Okay, that monitor, we're actually going to talk about it. That monitor, I'm really worried about that monitor. And you're going to see very soon. Okay, baby monitor, okay. What else?
Well,
where is basically we go to put to? Again, it depends on the level of consciousness of the patient. If we could, we'll just push on to ICU. Maybe it's missing. If we could, just push on to ICU. If we could. Okay? So that means there's going to be some sort of sorting out of patients, isn't it? Yeah. So that means your assessment is very, very important. Please, that assessment is extremely important because your response is going to be determined by your assessment. We need to learn how to do proper assessments of these patients. So again, we're also going to be doing GCS, we're also going to be checking that initial GCS and also hoping that there's somebody, either a nurse that you're sending the patient to or a doctor, somebody who can actually check his pain with the, okay, just the ICU nurses here, but none of the ward nurses are able to send the patient to are here. Again, sometimes what might happen in reality, patient is GCS 13, stable. Your guys have seen in A&E, they send you to scan. Where are they going back to? They're going back to A&E. Who is in A&E to actually monitor this patient and actually check this GCS and vitals and stuff? In reality, who actually checks it? She's shaking her head behind you. In reality, who actually checks it?
The person in A&E.
Yeah, so the doctor, the nurses don't check it, just the doctors.
Or patient relative.
Patient relative. God help us. God help me when I have a stroke. So, can you see why it would have been nice for the guys in management to be here? Yeah, because I'm bringing up real issues. We do have limitations. One of the keys is that we do have limitations, we have inefficiencies, we have gaps, but I know that we can do better than we're doing now. I know it for sure, and I'm proven it myself. So, in A&E, who is going to be assessing these patients? Who is going to be able to pick them? This patient came in GCS 15. Patient is now GCS 11. Was obeying commands, was now. Who is going to pick it up? You're going to see very soon. So, we talked about what next. So, the few things we talked about what next are trying to first of all identify where the patient is ischemic or a bleed. We said ischemic. Please give your 300 milligrams of aspirin. I beg you. And you want to kneel down. I beg. Once you look at that scanner, you cannot see white somewhere. And you know the patient has coming like this, please give that 300 milligrams of aspirin immediately. You cannot wait for any radiologist to come and give you reports. The patient is dead by then. Does this sound real to you? Yeah. This is very realistic. This is not theory. So the things we talked about is that once a patient is stable, either the patient is ab initio stable, is not unconscious, or the patient is unconscious, you either get the anesthetic to intubate or you put your oropharyngeal airway or whatever you put in, and you've gotten that scan. You now continue with your monitoring. You're trying to make sure that you stabilize the blood pressure, whatever and stuff like that. If it's ischemic, so that you give aspirin, you're looking at, hey, should I call the consultant or not? I'm really worried about it. Say, okay, maybe I shouldn't call the consultant, but at least let me hope that we are sending the patient to somebody who to monitor. And if you see a trend going down, then you have to call the consultant. Is it? Of course, everybody knows that if there's a suspicion that that the neurosurgeon might be able to do something here, that even by 2 a.m., 1 a.m., 4 a.m., everybody knows that when you come here, I pick it up the phone. Who doesn't know that? Who doesn't know that here?
I'm not conscious.
No, I know. Whoever calls me, usually it's my own team that calls me, isn't it? But do you guys know that whenever anybody calls me at any time, I actually pick up the phone? Do you guys know that? You guys didn't know. Okay, so now that's good information for you to know. Really, did you know that?
Yes.
That anytime that they call me, I pick up the phone. Anytime at all. Anytime at all. 1 a.m., 3 a.m., I pick up the phone. Really important. So for the hemorrhagic ones, same thing you're doing, she said, well, please do not give aspirin. I beg you. Once you look at the scan and you see white on the scan in the brain, please don't give aspirin, I'm begging you. Can you see why it's so important that you keep going and look at that scan? Yeah. Because looking at that scan will make a massive difference. You just look at it. But the guy is like this now, I can't see anything. But there's no white here. There's no bleed. And some balls are going to give aspirin. Give 300 milligrams of aspirin. You probably will not go wrong. If it's a bleed, okay, the bleed, there's a tendency to think that the neurosurgeon might be interested in this. Okay? So, no matter what you call the surgical team, people insult each other a little bit. You are supposed to be the one to no, okay. Finally, they managed to come. They look at the scan and say, I bleed this, and then they call me, isn't it? 2 and 3, and I pick the phone. And then I sort of give some advice. Okay. You know what talking about what next? Okay, now, next question. Every second on what next? What next?
Yeah.
Okay. Who is needed? Who do we need? Okay, from the beginning, who do we need? When the patient hits that door in A&E, we need all the A&E medical officers and the nurses. We need to do all their resuscitation and stabilization and stuff like that. Okay, we need the anesthetist and their people if the patient is localized and below. Okay, we need the radiographers in the CT scanner. Okay, we need you, who are the medical officers, to be on your toes. Okay, and then we need the neurologist or the consultant or the neurosurgeon, isn't it? and then if you can gather liver and stuff and call them. But I've told you that it gets to a point where you must call them. A patient comes in GCS 15 and then at 3 hours down the line GCS 12. Please, you have to call the consultant. Please, I don't know, but you call the consultant no matter what happens. Please call the consultant. I'm begging you. I am begging you. If we are lucky that we can actually put the patient in the place, the patient is in the A&E, and there's somebody actually really assessing the patient, even if it's hourly or whatever, or a patient is in the ward and there's a nurse, and the nurse can actually get on and say, this patient is getting worse, so doctor, I'm really worried about this. If that can actually happen, I don't know whether that really happens in reality. So the nurses are needed as well. You guys are needed. The consultant, be the neurologist or the physician or the neurosurgeon, is needed, isn't it? Anybody else that missed out? Who is needed? Anybody that missed out? Are you guys sure? Anybody that missed out? Medical officer both you in medicine and surgery, isn't it? Everybody's needed. ICU! Oh my God. You need the ICU guys.
I don't know what is that.
You need you guys too now. The ICU nurses and stuff. Huh? No, I know. At some point, someone will actually be calling you. They've spoken to you and said, but they're still calling you. Oh, yeah, I'm ICU nurse. Oh, there's a patient. Is there space? Is there space? Is there space? Do you hear that? Is there space? Because if there's no space in the ICU and you look at the patient and you can sort of project and say, this patient is going to run into trouble. You know it's actually better to transfer the patient out immediately.
Yeah.
Immediately. It's safer. And so that means that you guys in A&E and the guys in ICU must be husband and wife. At every time T, you must know what spaces are like inside there. I'm telling you the truth. You must every time T. You must be updating each other. We don't have any space, so just in case you have any patient that comes in. We have 2 spaces now. That sort of communication is absolutely fantastic and it's the way forward. So in a nutshell, that's who we need. Okay, so again, remember guys that by 2 a.m., 3 a.m., the chance of me coming in or Emeka coming in or Dr. Yakere, the neurologist coming in is still very low. Very, very low. I would like to use. Very, very low. Without of physically coming in by 2 a.m. So, but their patients, families, hey, what's happening? Sure, someone is going to have to talk to them. Who do you think that person is going to be? Eh? Oh, so it's you that's still going to talk to them? Well, I'm not doing ahead though. I'm trouble I did for this one. So you mean you're going to be, okay, let's get serious now. So, what are you actually going to tell them? What are you actually going to tell them? That's not what are you going to tell them? There are a few things you tell them. No, you don't need to tell them the whole world, there are a few things.
I will tell them what the present situation is and reassure them.
That reassurance, be very careful. I don't know what you're reassuring. I don't know what you're reassuring. Be very, very careful.
How to manage expectations.
Be careful.
Very careful.
Be careful.
I'll tell
See, it's better he says this here now. You know, we can all educate ourselves.
Yeah.
Do you understand? You talked about informing the patient about what? You're going to give the patient the diagnosis.
Yeah.
The patient's family. A sort of diagnosis, even if it's a differential diagnosis, even though you're not 100% sure, you're going to give them some form of diagnosis. And where is the diagnosis going to come from? The patient diagnosis is going to come from the history, how the patient presented, what you saw when you were assessing the patient during the ABCD, and what you've seen in the scan. Sir, ma, your brother, it does from what you told me and from what we assessed now and the scan we looked at, it does look like your brother has a stroke. Okay? So the first thing you're going to give them a diagnosis. Okay? What's the second thing you're going to do? Okay, that's the other diagnosis. You understand? If you can ventilate, keep ventilating. You understand? Tell them the type of stroke. It's not a bad idea. You understand? Tell them the kind of stroke. Oh, it's a bleed, or it's a stroke where the blood going to the part of the brain has been blocked off and the blood going to the brain. But use simple language. Don't keep telling ischemic. What is ischemic? To a market woman. What is it? I don't understand. What is ischemic? Go to show them that you will know poop. They won't understand anything you're saying. So please, when you're giving them diagnosis, break it down into something simple, something that they can relate to and stuff like that. Okay? So, diagnosis. Diagnosis, I keep talking about diagnosis, but diagnosis is one of these. What is the second thing you're going to tell them?
They ask for how it might.
So, prognosis is it? Okay. So, To add to that, you're going to actually try and tell them what the condition of the patient is. That is so important. Oh, extremely important. The point is that you guys don't walk around me. I do it every time I'm speaking to patients and their relatives. Sir, I will classify your mother's case as she's stable. I will classify it as being serious. Mama's case is life-threatening. Please, you have to let them do that. Very important. Someone who comes with a bleed in the brain and is GCS12, how will you classify that? That's life-threatening. Definitely life-threatening. If someone comes in with an ischemic stroke and the person is GCS15, and how will you classify that? Serious, exactly. You see, you guys know these things. That's serious. And you can go forward and tell them, oh, we need to monitor him very closely, and this, things might evolve, things might change, and stuff. But on top of the game, we are doing this, and doing this, and we'll work on the best. We'll keep putting our best because I'm to actually help and do this and do this. So we talked about a few things. We talked about giving a diagnosis, okay, trying to give some sort of prognostication, looking at outcome, managing expectation, and telling them the condition of the patient. Try and classify the condition of the patient. What is the third thing that we do because we are in Nigeria?
Cost.
Cost is very important. Extremely important. Those are the things you need to do. Cost. You must tell them, hey, especially if the patient is in really bad state. Patient is GCS5, abnormally flexing. One pupil is blown and stuff like that. You tell them, it doesn't look good at all. Okay, we can continue to do our best, ICU care and stuff like that. But when a patient, this kind of patient going to ICU is extremely expensive. How much? I don't really know, but going into millions. So the question is, do you want to actually commit to that, or if you provide that amount of information and the family says, you know what, sorry, even money to chop will not get for us. We would rather take the patient home. So that is an informed decision.
Yeah.
It's an informed decision. They have looked at it and say, I beg, millions. Me, do I even have food to eat at all to talk about my baby? I beg. Because something will kill a man. They carry their person.
Sorry, can I say something? Like, you talked about cost of ICU, and you said it runs in 2 million. You see, many times the mistake we make is we tell people it's 500,000 naira for deposit. I found that it's a initial deposit to get person in.
Yeah.
Most of them are not.
That's a life on a pit of hell.
They're not the sellers of easily weeks in there.
In fact,
that 500,000 is going to finish it like.
Do you know what? I'm actually thinking of doing an audit.
Okay,
I'm actually thinking of doing an audit because I have to look at patients I look after, this kind of patients, and see how much they finally spent.
Yeah.
They go into 7 million, 4 million, 10 million, and stuff like that. It is not a joke at all.
So don't ever think that 500,000 is.
No, please, because I tell them it runs into millions. And then let them say, oh yeah, we commit, oh we love her. That's okay, that's fine. No problem. Also, it's very important to know whether there's ICU as well, because if there's no ICU, say, hey, we strongly advise that you go somewhere. So I wish there was a system where in A&E, for example, we have the numbers of other people that we can link up and say, hey, we have a patient, we don't have an ICU, can they come to yourself? I wish that's very helpful for patients and their families. I wish we could actually have that, but it's difficult in this terrain. Hopefully we'll get to that point at some point. Okay? So 3 things to communicate to the family. Very important. Diagnosis. Number 2, managing the expectation and giving them some sort of prognostication or ideal outcome. And number 3, telling them about cost. So when you're on call and stuff like that, please talk to them about this. Next slide, please. Okay, a story. So, a hospital in Abuja, a patient is coming all the way from Kaduna. The wife says, see, don't go anywhere, you're not feeling too fine. But decides to go. Okay, gets to Abuja. While he's coming down from the car, left hand and like this. And then they now move the patient to a private hospital. That's what usually happens since they go to a private hospital. Of course, the private hospital wants to make money. Even though when they don't have capacity to cover the patient, like, let them get their own small one inside first. Making all loss. Okay, finally, this patient moves into the main hospital that looks after him and actually gets to that hospital around roughly maybe around 10:30 p.m. in the night. Okay? The A&E guys sort of do a good job. They assess the patient and everything. When they assess the patient is GCS15. People are equally reactive. The only problem is that this hand on level is a little bit of drooping, but the patient is fully conscious. Okay? They send the patient for a CT scan because they're happy that the patient is stable, isn't it? They send the patient for a CT scan. That CT scan happens by 11:23 p.m. Okay? The first documentation by the guys in the A&E in this hospital is by 11:46. So maybe in reality, the patient comes, oh, we need to do this, take blood, do this, whatever, and they request for the scan, and they come back, okay, let me come and document. Right? That's really what will happen. Now, the next documentation, of course, their plan is do CT scan, get MTOC. Is that what they call it? Guys? MTOC. Get MTOC, MTOC, get MTOC and whatever. So finally, if you look